Don't look. A filthy looking pile of rags, also known as my wife, sat in the corner of the basement. I had been dumped in the corner. The stench of them was awful and made my eyes water. I was terrified to even touch the pile to see what lay within, but I knew I had to. I had come this far. After all this searching, after all I had seen, when I looked within the rags, did I finally find Rachel? Yes. We're gonna say yes, and then in another playthrough I'm going to say no. I'm like, nope, didn't see shit. Oh no. My hands trembled as I pulled back of the layers of cloth. There at the center, under all that dirt and mess, was my beloved, my Rachel. Her arms were bruised all over and slashed repeatedly. Her clothes were ripped and torn. And even though all that sickening blood was obvious, she had been stabbed to death. The knife I had carried all this way suddenly seemed like a poison. What had happened, Rachel? Who did this to you? I thought about all that I had seen and wondered if any of it could help me figure out who had done this. And when I couldn't stay there any longer, I stepped away on shaky legs and made my way back upstairs. I reluctantly, exhausted from my journey, I could no longer resist the urge to just close my eyes. Maybe I would use some of Rachel's travel books and find some place to go. It was my wallet with its contents intact. Either I dropped that stuff or somebody else did. Maybe I was sleepwalking again, or maybe somebody stole it from me. Norman's store, that forest, the water tower. Was I at those places before? Yes. I didn't see how it could have happened any other way. I must have been on one of my been the one to lose my wallet and its contents. But what does that mean? That you bust this bitch head open. That was decided. This was the old photo of that other man and his wife. I assumed I found it in that house. I recall those faded remains I had found deep underneath his house. What had he done there? Well, what did I think? Was that man involved in this whole mess somehow? Yes, definitely. Those tunnels, the odd tools in his house, and the remains of his wife. He wasn't innocent, that's for sure. But what was his part in it, is the question. Within the few broken pieces that remained of the mirror, I could see my face had grown pale and weak. I couldn't bear to look again. It was like I didn't actually expect a reflection. I felt empty and drained. Okay, that didn't change. It was the key card I found at the bottom of that factory locker. I never did bother to use it. Someone had been going through those lockers and poking around the plant. Still, it didn't quite add up. Was I the one who had been going back to the factory? Yes. It looked that way, didn't it? That locker room, I had given up drinking, but... stress, man. The laptop had finally ran out of power. office safe sat on the floor. I used to keep tax records and other important documents in it. I used a digital passcode lock, but I didn't have the code. Maybe I had left it somewhere. I leafed through the notebook I had taken from the forest. In it were names that had been written down: Heather, Olivia, Ashley, Cheryl, Iris, Daphne, Holly, Rose, Rachel. Those poor girls. Were they victims of the same person who had killed Rachel? I wondered what happened to the other names on that list, or the ones scratched out on that desk in those wet tunnels. From now on, I'd have no one to get angry with me for stupid things like buying this TV. It was the letter I had taken from the postbox. Rachel, were you really having an affair with Norman? What? Yes. But why? I didn't think things were that bad. In the letter, Rachel seemed concerned. She almost seemed worried of what Norman might do. Did he do that to Rachel? Come on, bro. No. Norman may have betrayed me, but I don't think he was capable of that. I hated him. I hated him so much, but I couldn't blame him for what happened to my wife. I decided no matter what, I needed some kind of escape. Safe code. I think the safe code is... The laptop was there, but I found some notes and some loose paper on the drawer where I found the key. There was a yellow sticky note with an 8-digit code on it. For her. Huh. No, that can't be it. For you, her. Murderer. No. Murder? For yeah, I kind of say for her. I don't know. The code looked like it might be the safe, be for the safe, but what kind of phrase was that? It's either murder or for her. Forget her? Nah. Fure? The code I found should have let me access the safe. Did I try to open it? Yes. The code worked. I pulled open the small safe door and peered inside. There was a photo in there of Rachel and I when we had first moved to town. We were smiling outside the front of the house, which looked like a real mess. We looked happy though. Odd, I couldn't remember who took that photo. Inside the safe was also an envelope. The front of it read, "Do not open until I tell you." I guess this was a good time. It's weird how you write that. As good a time as any to see what was inside. Did I open the envelope and read what was inside? Yes, I did. I tore open the envelope and removed the yellow lined paper inside. On it was a letter written in a hand that looked familiar. The letter read, Female voice. I know this whole event has probably been pretty difficult. You can't imagine how hard it's been for me, too. Well, maybe you can. That isn't meant to be an excuse, but while I hope you can better understand why I've done what I've done, moving to this town seemed like such a dream, a quiet place to get established, to live out our lives, and to be together. But you know as well as I do that things quickly changed. Your drinking was one of them. Was one thing. But as you grew more distant, as you retreated into that world of yours, well, it was clear you didn't need me as much. In fact, maybe you never needed me at all. But it took all this to make you realize, in the end, though you may never forgive me for this, you may never forgive yourself, but this is probably for the best. You'll be healthier for this. I'm just sorry it had to happen this way, Rachel. That doesn't make any fucking sense, because if he were to read that letter after she left, I'm just going to say that it sounded more like she was going to be with Norman. Even though she wrote this letter to Norman stating that, you know, she needed time from both of them. That letter kind of sounds like, hey, you know, like, I'm leaving you for this guy, you know, and you'll be healthier for it. If you're going through something, like you lost your job and, you know, you don't have any money and you're struggling, and, you know, like you're struggling with your alcoholism and stuff like that, how is furthering that depression going to help him? I don't know. It just seems a little selfish and stupid. I don't know. The man in the house, was he responsible? When I woke up, I had found him dead already. Okay. It seemed like I had seen all there was. Maybe I thought I was ready to go back into the basement. Maybe there wouldn't be anything for me to find, but I had to take a last look. If I was guilty, I could take this to a warm, safe place and do something about it. Did I pick up the knife? No. No. There were other means of dealing with this. Now that I stood there, I realized I couldn't go back into that room again. I had already seen too much. The mail still sat there, heaped on the floor. How long had Rachel been lying in the basement? There was nothing for me anymore. No reason to stay in that house. Did I leave, never to return? Yes. Living in this town hadn't been easy. The plant had helped in some way to stay grounded. It kept me in line, gave me something to do, and helped me get away from my past. When the factory closed, everything changed. I guess that was when I had started sleepwalking, disappearing for hours at a time. I had MRIs and piles of doctor's reports, but nothing seemed to help, not even drinking. But I swear I had tried to give it up. I knew it. The sleepwalking never really went away, though. But I know Rachel had tried. I know she had tried to be there for me, even when everything was falling apart. This night had unearthed terrible truths, but I knew it was a final act of a long-standing horror I had been living. Waking up in that house tonight was the final cruelty. I wish I had remained unconscious in that room forever. It was obvious to me that the man I had found in that house had something to do with all this. Could he have killed Rachel? It started to seem that there were too many things I had seen to think otherwise. After making it out of those tunnels, I thought those sewers might feel safer. I was wrong. The security tape I had watched showed someone being attacked by what looked like two men. Well, two people. But who was in that? Who was it that was attacked? It was the guard, obviously, but I had found the contents of my wallet scattered throughout town. Why the hell had I been out there? Had my sleepwalking gone to some new extreme? The thought that I couldn't account for my whereabouts, but knew I had been to that forest and even Norman's place, well, it was terrifying. I didn't know what that meant, but at least I had recovered my things. Hopefully, I thought that would cover my tracks, so I wouldn't be blamed for all this. Even more troubling were those poor girls I had found in those terrible woods, half hidden in a shallow grave. Their secret deaths seemed like the ultimate defiling. If I hadn't found them, would anyone have done so? Would they have even been missed? I vaguely recalled the desk I had seen in those tunnels, the names etched there. Someone had killed those girls. Was it that man? It was clear at least that I had been the one going back to that factory. I must have been sleepwalking or something. But what the hell was I doing there? I had given up drinking, hadn't I? So what was going on in that boarded up room? Suddenly my stomach started to turn. Was I responsible for that dead guard? After the factory, I thought I might find some solace if I could just get to Norman's store. But all I had found were more horrors and more questions. Now that I really considered it, that's when I should have seen it coming. Norman, what were you and Rachel up to? Dude, are you stupid? It was obvious things were more complicated than I had even ever imagined. How long had you been going behind my back? More importantly, why, Norman? Whoever had killed Rachel had probably gone after you too. Maybe they knew about what you were up to. I would never know peace, Norman. But despite your transgressions, a part of me really did hope that you would. When I had marched through the rain towards home, I desperately clung to the hope that this would end. And I guess, in a way, it did. But how could I have known how hopeless it was? I had started to feel as disoriented as when I sleepwalked. To think of it now, I guess I should have known from the terrible silence that greeted me when I first stepped into our house and stood there in the kitchen. There was a sound of television, radio. There was no sound of television, radio, or even air. I just messed that whole thing up. There was no sound of television, radio, or even that. I am not pausing. I don't know why I'm not pausing. There was no sound of television, radio. Even the air was still. But seeing Rachel there, lying ruined and discarded in that basement, that was a horror I could never have imagined. I didn't know if I'd ever find the answers I craved. But I know that somehow that other man I had found was responsible for this. if not directly, he must have had a hand in Rachel's death. So what was I doing in that damned house of his? Had I found out? Had I killed him? My damn condition made it difficult to know memories and time frames were always a mess, and I could never be sure. Knowing that man was dead, though, was cold comfort. My wife was gone, and no matter what happened to me now, I was lost forever. As I swung open the door, I stepped out into the air. I caught the scent of wet grass and fog. Rachel, my beautiful wife. Just the thought of her again, cold and inert, shook me from head to toe. What would I do now? Who could I turn to? It would only be a matter of time before the police got involved, before the neighbors knew. The front lawn was soft and giving beneath my feet, and I couldn't shake the urge that I shouldn't stand there, but rather that I should run. Okay. I know there's multiple endings to this game, but for the most part, it seems like, from what I'm gathering, or how I'm seeing this, is that he lost his job 3 years ago, went through a trying time, started drinking again. The drinking and the depression led to him sleepwalking, which might have gave him an alter ego. That ego probably wanted to still drink because that's what home is dedicated to. My wife Nancy, watch your back. Gave him an alter ego. He started to drink, and during all that time, I believe that he found out about the affair in some way. Maybe his alter ego knew another guy who was committing murders, or maybe he even helped him kill his wife originally, and as a quid pro quo was like, hey, you come and help me kill my wife now and help me get away with it. But maybe the alter ego thought there was loose ends after killing Norman and the wife and the guard and all that other stuff, and tried to cover his tracks. Or maybe it had nothing to do with any of that. Maybe he's actually totally innocent in some kind of way. I don't know how. But the way the wife was describing his behavior is that something was wrong. It kind of leaves it open with the Norman thing, because she does write the letter about not being with either of them, but in the safe leaves the envelope like she was going to be with Norman. And the password, it was strange, but I'm not exactly sure what it was trying to say, but maybe deep down inside he knew what she was doing. So I don't know. I'm curious to see some of these other endings. I'm gonna try to go back and get them throughout time, but for the most part, this is the end of Home. So I hope everybody enjoyed that, and I will try to go back and get the other endings and put them in a collage kind of thing, or like a compilation, and show all the endings at one time. But thanks for watching, and as always, good night and stay legendary.